And so today's message is the second message in this series. Last week I preached the first message in the series, which was standing up. And it was Job chapter 42, verse 10. Job, after 42 chapters of madness and misery, prayed for his friends and God turned around his captivity. He was, and I talked about standing up for others in prayer. And I talked about how this church has stood up for myself and Rhonda in prayer and how much I appreciate that. Now today I'm going to talk about a whole nother standing. This one is standing on. And now I would like to call it standing on the promises of God, but that's not the message that I'm preaching. I believe it might have been the message that I preached the first time, but it's not the message that I'm preaching this time. Today I'm talking about standing on experiences. And not that we shouldn't stand on God's word. I'm going to come back around that, so don't nobody get all funky sideways on me, okay? Just bear with me. But sometimes in life, because got to be honest right now, and as your pastor, it's probably, I don't know, especially if you're a new visitor, you're probably getting ready to go, oh crap, really? As much as I love this book, as much as I have preached to dig into this book, I haven't dug into this book as much in the last month and a half as I normally do, to be real honest with you. I've went through the hardest, darkest, couldn't have never imagined. It's been a little tough for me to press into this book right now. But because I have so much in my life, a lot of the words of the book come to life inside of my spirit without actually opening the book. And that's been very good. And so today I'm not talking so much only about standing on the Word of God, which would be the obvious kind of what, okay, we're standing tall on the rock, standing on the promise. That's not where I'm at right now. Today I'm talking about standing on the experiences that you have in life. And sometimes you can't even stand on your own experiences because you've never experienced what you're going through and you don't know how to deal with it. And the truth of the matter is, it's right where your pastor's at right now. Never been here before, okay? Never had to even think about walking the walk that I'm walking right now. And so I've had to look back to my good buddy in the Old Testament, David, who I've preached so much about at this church. Because David actually had to walk the walk that I'm walking. He had to walk it more than once. Walked it with a baby, and then had to walk it with an adult son as well. And so maybe not the exact same situation, and me and my wife talk about that often because no two situations can be exactly the same. But a lot in my walk right now, I'm standing a little bit on the walk that David had, and I'd had to refer to David, and the words from David came to me as encouragement and direction through this process to make sure that I'm here with my people, because you're the people that God's given me, and very, very grateful as a pastor to have you as a congregation, as a family, as fellow brothers and sisters in the family of God, because it has been an incredible strength to me. And some of you right now, I'm standing on your experiences just because you've been digging in on prayer for me, and I'm able to have some foundation underneath my feet because of your support. So today as we talk about that, now last week when we talked about standing up, we talked about standing up for each other in prayer, and that's important. Man, and I'm going to tell you, I've realized the importance of it more in this last month and a half than I ever realized before in my whole adult life, and been preaching the gospel for 24 years, going on 25 years, and didn't know how important praying for each other was until this last month and a half when people had to pray for me, and I know it was the prayers of my friends that got me through. So today as we're talking about, I'm going to talk about standing tall on the rock, but I'm talking specifically on standing on and standing on the experiences in life. And I'm going to look at David's life because he was a man that had experiences, and even as a young boy he learned to refer back to experiences in life, and really they were his experiences with God in life that he continued to refer back to. Now there are times when we may not have a mile marker to refer back to in life, but in the Bible, and if we'll become students of God's word, we will find that somebody else in this word has been past this mile marker that you're going through right now, and that you can rely on, you can stand on, you can refer back to the experience that they went through. And so I want you to know that none of us are really left without hope. There is hope in this book, but sometimes you got to dig to find it. Sometimes you got to pray that prayer, that song that they just said, and say, God, you got to set a fire down in my soul because I don't want to go forward anymore. But going backwards is not an option. At least not in my life, it's not. I've chose that, no matter what I'm going through right now, I know my past was darker than my future. How many understand what I'm saying? And I'm not willing to go back there. And so I've got to continue to go forward. So as we do that, today we're talking about standing on the experiences of others. 1 Samuel chapter 17, probably one of the more famous chapters in David's life, I would think. It's probably taught in every children's church around the United States and around the world. And it's David, the giant killer. Chapter 17, 1 Samuel. And David is arrived to the battlefield. His brothers are soldiers in the Israelite army. And David is not yet a soldier. David has been going back and forth from the sheep to the battlefield, from the sheep to the battlefield. He was bringing supplies to his brothers, bringing bread and stuff like that to the troops. And David shows up to the battlefield after Goliath has been already taunting and cursing God's army for 40 days and 40 nights, okay? 40 in the Bible is a specific number, and it's reviewed over and over and over again. The Israelites were in the desert for 40 years. Jesus went to the desert for 40 days to pray and fast. And so I'm not going to dig in on the number thing on that, but it was a specific thing, and it was important. And then David shows up to the battlefield. Verse 34, chapter 17, 1 Samuel. And it says this, "But David persisted. I have been taking care." Now, what's going on here? Let me give you a little backstory because I'm jumping right in the middle of the story. In case you're not familiar. David shows up to the battlefield. They've got this big old giant. He's a Philistine. He's across the battlefield, and he's cursing it'd be like someone standing across the battlefield cursing the United States Army and the God that we stand for. It would rise something up on the inside of us, or it ought to. It's not by accident if you showed up to this church that there's two great big American flags up there next to the cross. It's on purpose, just to let you know we love God and we love our country. We love them both, okay? And they're both important, and don't tread on either one of them. And so David shows up to the battlefield, and he's just a little guy, but he's got that on the inside. He's got that blood that boils like you and I. And he hears this guy over there, and he's probably been back and forth, so there's been a few days, and I think by day number 40, David's finally fed up. I don't know if he showed up on day number 7, and maybe day number 21, and maybe day number 35. Maybe he came once a week, but he shows up on day number 40, and he's just had it, and he's like, can nobody stand up? You guys gonna keep listening to this stuff? You're gonna put up with this stuff like this? Against our country and our God? He's finally like, I'm done with this. Let me do it. I'm just a boy, but let me take care of this guy. And they're all like, dude, you can't do it. They're like, nah, you're just a kid. His brothers are going, go back to the sheep. Go back to that scrawny little flock that you tend. So finally it says in verse 34, but David persisted. He said, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. Now, how many know that's not much of a prerequisite for war? Till you hear the rest of this story. And all of a sudden you realize David is no average scrawny little kid taking care of some sheep and some goat. Watch this. He said, I've been taking care of my dad's sheep and goats. He said, when a lion or a bear comes to steal the lamb, and that's what they do. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it. Didn't say I sit and wait and I lay a trap. He said, I go after it to rescue the lamb from its mouth. And this kid's pretty ballsy. Oops, can I say that in church? I guess I can. I'm the pastor, right? It's our church. Is everybody cool with that here? You're at the right church then. If you were burdened down with religion, I probably just unburdened you, okay? This next statement, he's got some cojones. Watch this. He says, I I go after it. Okay, just first off, going after we probably got some dudes in here pretty bad. Anybody ever thought about going after like a lion or a bear with just a club? Like, I want a good rifle. I mean, know what I'm saying? I want a good rifle, you know? I want something that's gonna drop them. Yes. So does Blue. I don't play around with no little BB gun, right? No pellet gun. Even a 22 ain't gonna do no good out there with a lion or a bear, right? Don't even want my 9mm with a lion or bear. I want something a little bit bigger, right? And so he says, I go after him with my club. And then watch this. And then he says, if the animal turns on me, what do you think the animal is gonna do? If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and I club it to death. And he says, I've done this to both a lion and to a bear. And he says, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine just the same. In other words, I am not standing here and listening to this BS from this guy over here cursing my God. He said, and then he reminded everybody why he has the victory. He said, the Lord who rescued me from the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. And so, as I go through this, as David would call it in the book of Psalms, darkest place of my life, Psalms 23 would call it the valley. As I go through this valley, I got to stand on David's experience because I don't have an experience right now. Does that make sense to everybody? And you're going to go through times, let me tell you this, you're going to go through times when you don't have the experience. But there's a mile marker somewhere in this book, if you'll dig and you'll keep being a student of it, you'll keep being faithful, you'll keep coming back to the house of God. God will direct you and inspire you. He will enlighten you and empower you through his word of how you can make it by standing on the experiences of the men and women that have gone before us in this book that have made it through and have come out victorious. My former pastor, and he's still my pastor, my first pastor, who is still my pastor back in Southwest Missouri, Springfield, Pastor Phil Webb, texted me this morning, and he knows I've been going what we're going through. He texted me this morning, and you guys have heard me say this. He said, Jeff, I just want to remind you, God did not create anyone to be average. Have you heard me say that before? How many of you grew up just thinking, I just hope I just can grow up to be mediocre. I don't necessarily want to be a good dad or a bad dad. I just be average. I'm cool with it. I don't want to be a great businessman, just like to be average. Don't want to be good at anything, just as long as I could just be average. No, nobody was created to be average. And God didn't call average people here to Big House. Ain't none of you average. Okay, look around you. You see anybody average in this place? Ain't nobody normal or average in this place, right? But we all are going to go through times in life when you're going to have to stand on somebody else's experience, where you're going to have a little help from somebody else's that's already been down the road there. I haven't been everywhere yet, and there are places in life, I will tell you that if I could go back, I wish I wasn't in the place I'm at right now, if the truth is known. But I'm here, so I have to dig in and say, God, and my prayer to God lately has been, God, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? And that needs to be our prayer in each and every day that we live is, God, how is it that you want me to live this day? How is it that you want me to glorify your name? How is it that you want people to see you in me this day as I live it out, these 24 hours that you've given me today? Because we're not promised anymore. And so as I looked at this story, verse 36 says, I've done this. Right now, I cannot say I've done this. But it was the coolest thing on my way to church, because I don't ride to church with my wife very often. Not cool that we don't. It was cool that we were together. And because I love going everywhere with that smoking hot redhead that God's given me. Dang, I love you, girl. And she said, I know I got to get through this because I'm going to have to tell someone else someday how to get through this. It was good to hear you say that, babe. You didn't know that that was part of my scripture. I don't pre-preach my messages to her. It's just me and God till they come out fresh and hot up here. And so she didn't know that I was getting ready to say, David said, I've done this. Your pastor right now cannot say that at this point in my life that I've done this. I'm doing it, but I've not done it. Does that make sense to everybody? He said, I've done this to both a lion and a bear, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine as well. I have not done this yet, but as God continues to help me, I will do this. And I will help others to be able to do it as well. And whatever God takes you through, you got to lean on him, and you got to lean on him. It's nice to have people around you, but you still got to lean on him. Are you tracking with me? And in this process that I'm in, I cannot say I've done this, but I'm going to do it. I cannot say I've done this, but I'm doing it. And there will be a day when I'll be able to say, and I'll do it. I know that we're going to get through this, but we're going to. So as I look at, just because I think when we get to the crux of something really happening, the next thing happens, he grabs 5 smooth stones from the creek. He runs out to the battlefield, smacks the giant down, draws the giant's sword after the giant falls from the rock hitting him in the forehead, draws the giant's sword, chops off his head. Thus the giant's head over here to my right, your left. But in that process, there's some real simple things that kind of jumped out of the story that I want to share with us, that are maybe experiences from David's life that allowed him to be able to get to the I've done that point. How many hear what I'm saying? Because I want us to all be able to get to that point that we can say, I made it across the finish line. Jesus says, when we get to heaven, he wants to be able to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. I put it on my Facebook. He doesn't want you to say, well said. You can talk all the talk you want, but if you didn't do it, you didn't do it. It's not done. He didn't say, well said. He didn't say, good thought. Man, that was good thought, my faithful servant. Way to think it. He didn't even say good prayer. He said, well done, my good and faithful servant. So in this done process that David got through here, some things that just, are there more? There are. Really, truthfully, you should go back and read 1 Samuel 17 and let God speak more life out of that story to you than I'm going to give to us today. But I've got a few small little points that if you'll grab them, I believe they'll help all of us to stand on the experience that David had. Number 1 is taking care. Watch this. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34. David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's goats and sheep. Hey, listen. All the other brothers were in the high-profile place at the time. They were on the battlefield. They had their armor on. They had this breastplate. They probably were spending time, even though they were a bunch of chickens, standing there shining their breastplates, you know? They had these shin guards. They're probably making sure they were nice and shiny, and their swords were sharp as could be. They were in high-profile, wonderful-looking positions and places. And all David had been doing was taking care of the sheep and the goats. And folks, let me just say this. What I found I got to do as I go through this process is take care of the absolutes right now. How many hear what I'm saying? And sometimes you just got to learn to take care of the simple stuff. The stuff that maybe nobody else is going to really notice you doing, but they will really notice if it goes undone. Does that make sense? People at the church have said, what can we do for you and Rhonda? And you have done everything for us, and thank God for it. There is no way. I'm going to tell you, going through this process that we're going through, the last thing that either one of us would want to see, or my son who's already graduated to heaven, would be that Big House doesn't go on and kick the snot out of the devil's kingdom in Tempe, Arizona, and all around the United States. Don't get me too fired up. I'd get cussing out of this pulpit. That wouldn't be good. I almost did. It was like that close. But truth of the matter is, I'm not real active in doing the butt kicking right now. Is everybody getting what I'm saying? I'm not out there serving in the hood. You're doing it for God. Because that's what it takes. You're taking care of those things that I can't even do right now. And so when people message me and say, what can I do to help you? You know what? I don't even freaking know right now. I don't know what to tell you to do to help me. Pray for me. But let's stay faithful in the house of God. That's what you need to do. Let's make sure that if you think I would be out there telling people about Jesus, you tell 2 people about Jesus. You get done what you think I would be doing and then do a little bit more of what you think I'd be doing to make sure it got done. Take care of the sheep and the goats. Take care of what nobody else would want to. I was so proud of our church, and this is a simple thing. I was so proud of our church when I walked into this building today and saw it full of people that I've been preaching on Saturday night. I'm not preaching on Thursdays. I'm very almost inactive as a pastor right now because I'm trying to heal, trying to get refreshed by God. I was so proud to walk in and see the building full, and then I walked in the men's restroom, and the floor was clean. And there was a new sign on the men's door that must have been the old one needed to be replaced. And the little metal on the side of the wall was clean. And you say, really? Yeah, that was a big deal to me. You know why? Someone's taking care of the sheep and the goat while I wasn't even here. Does that make sense? What can you do? You can do the little simple things because we by no means want to allow the lion and the bears a chance to come in right now. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So take care of business. And what do you do when you don't know what to do? You take care of business. You pay your bills. You work hard. You get up in the morning, you go to work. You eat. You take care of your health. You know what I'm doing? I'm eating right now. That's one of the things I'm doing to recover. I'm eating right. You know what I'm doing? I'm exercising. You know what I'm doing? I'm riding my motorcycle once in a while with the guys because it's good for my brains. You know what I'm doing? I'm taking care of business. I'm spending time with my wife. Going out on date nights with her. It's part of the healing process. Does everybody get what I'm saying? And so I think sometimes we try to make this whole in life, and not everybody is going through what I'm going through, but you're going to go through something, or you're going through something. And when you go through it, you just got to keep taking care of business. You got to take care of the simple stuff. You got to take care of the sheep and the goats, even though it's not glamorous, even though you may not get a lot of pats on the back for taking care of sheep and goat. But if the sheep and the goat aren't taken care of, people will notice that they haven't been taken care of. Does that make sense to everybody? So number 1, take care. Number 2, when? Realize, watch this. David was pretty sharp. He was taking care of the sheep and goats. But he realized, it said, but David persisted, I've been out taking care of my father's sheep and goats. And when a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb, he knew that the when was coming. He knew that it was going to happen. Something, and let me tell you, I've preached it for 7 years in this church, and for as long as I've always preached, because it ain't no cotton candy jelly bean Jesus. And life is not always awesome and easy and wonderful. I would love to be able to stand up here as the preacher and the pastor and say, if you give your life to Jesus today, it's going to be a bed of roses from this day forward. Everything's going to be wonderful. It's a wonderful life. Would make a nice song, but it's not the truth. Right? You're going to have when in your life. And when happens, at least you knew it was coming. You knew there was an opportunity for when to happen. Now let me tell you this, you don't always know how to react when happens. I preached it, and I'm preaching it right now, but let me tell you, when happened to me, you have a hard time accepting it sometimes. You have a hard time, what do I do to move on from when? But I guess I'm here to say the lion and the bear, David knew was going to happen. So he was prepared for the when. He had sharpened up his skills. He didn't even have a sword. He just had a club. He sharpened up his skills with his club. Can you imagine taking on a lion with a club? 2x4 or 4x4 or baseball bat. Give me something with some gunpowder and lead. Right? But he didn't have it, so he got ready for the win the best he knew how. And when it happened, he was able to make it beyond. So number one, you take care of what you're supposed to be taking care of, the sheep and the goats. It's not always glamorous, but it'll get you through. Standing on David's experience. Number two, prepare for the win. I'm not saying have a doomsday mentality, and track with me for a second. The one thing I do, there's a lot of things I'm a little confused on right now, just to be honest. You know, I've been preaching the gospel for 24 years, and in my first Sunday back in this pulpit, I said, I think I have more questions for God today than I did 24 years ago when I was in Bible college, right? But I do know this, he's still a good God. Do I understand him 100%? I do not. That's just honesty and humility with you. It's not, I'm not trying to candy coat anything, not trying to impress anybody here. I don't understand him like I even thought I did a year ago. A year ago, I was preaching a series right now on God's elite fighting forces. Let me tell you this. Someone told me, hey, patted me on the back the other day and said, Pastor Jeff, just keep on standing. I turned to the guy that was with me after that guy, the guy walked away. I'm like, man, he don't know that I don't even feel like I'm standing right now. If it wasn't for the other great men and women at this church standing around me, I don't know that I would be, but I am. Don't feel real elite right now. I was preaching it last year, but I don't feel it right now. But we don't walk by feelings, we walk by faith. Our faith is not only what we know, but it's what we've lived. That's what we're known as. Truth of the matter is, because of the faith that I've lived at this point, I've built a perimeter of great people around my wife and myself and our family that has helped to support us through a hard time. So number one, you take care. Number two, you prepare for the win. Not by a doomsday mentality, not always looking around the corner for another demon or dark side coming on, but just know, hey, get yourself in shape. It's just like if you were going to do a triathlon. You sure better get some swimming going on, because if you're not a good swimmer and you try to do a triathlon, you're going to drown in the lake, right? If you don't know how to ride a bicycle, you think you're going to do a triathlon, you're not going to win. You're going to be lucky if you even place anywhere. You got to learn to run. You got to get in shape. You got to have your endurance up. You got to be ready for the win. So number one, take care. Number two, win. Number three, you go rescue. Watch this. 1 Samuel, David said, I go after it with a club to rescue the lamb. Hey, you know what? We're a church that's all about rescue. We really are. Why do you think we go out and knock on doors every single Saturday? Why do you think we go out every Saturday and pass out flyers and pass out food bags to people in the community? Because we want to rescue them from the darkness that they live in. Because if you're out there without Jesus, man, it's a rough road to go. Because that same wind that hits you and I as believers in Jesus hits them, but they got no hope. They've got no one else's experience to plant their feet on to be able to stand in those times. So we go out as a church and rescue. Why do you think we bought that big black bus out there? And let me just say this. We got one of our guys, he's got a vehicle over at SEMA this week, but when he gets back from SEMA, he's going to repaint that bus to get rid of all that graffiti on it. We're going to go out on Saturday nights and we're going to take, because it was Jeffrey's dream. It was my son's dream. Take that bus up and down Mill Avenue and Van Buren Avenue and pick up people that need to be rescued and bring them into the house of God. Because that's what we do as a church. And that's the experience that we're going to stand on. And that's the experience that we're going to move forward on. We're not going to stand around and go, okay, poor, pitiful me. Life is hard. And it is. But we're not going to stand around and dwell on a word. Until God brings me home, I'm going to do damage to the kingdom of darkness. I'm going to do my best to make the devil's life miserable while I'm on this earth, because that's one way that I can just take out that anger and rage that rages inside of me that has started to come back up. I'm going to take it out on the kingdom of darkness. Can't take it out on people, right? and take it out on sin. We love the sinners. We don't love the sin. And so we're going to rescue those people that are out there that need Jesus, those people that are hungry and need to feed their family, those people that are out there wondering, does anybody love me? They feel cast out, cast away, rejected by society. We're the church that we built this church on being a place where everybody feels like they can belong. There ain't nobody that can't feel at home at Big House. We're a place for people to believe, a place for people to belong, and a place for people to become everything God created them to be. That's how we're going to see them rescued from the darkness that the enemy has tricked them into, deceived them into living. So number one, taking care. Number two, knowing the when. When is coming. Number three, we're going to go and rescue. And number four, you got to catch it. Watch this. 1 Samuel, verse 35, chapter 17. If the animal turns, that if, I'm like, are you kidding me? That if is like, really? What, has he got such a reputation with lions and bears out there that some of them don't turn on him? They just run? Does that make you, I'm like, if they turn on you, like, it's like, okay, when I'm done with the lamb, I'm going to eat you too, David. It's a lion or a bear. It's what they do. If the animal turns on me, I catch it. Let me say this. A lot of you mess around with an animal called sin. A lot of you mess around with little things. They seem like they're nice little cuddly kitty cats. Little comfortable little dogs that can sit on your lap. And the devil doesn't come with horns like Halloween and a tail and a pitchfork. Bible says he comes generally as an angel of light to deceive you. But once he's got you convinced that he's okay, you know what he does? He turns on you. And it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Freaking Hyde. He turns on you. And he will eat your lunch if you don't catch it. So why wait? Why wait till you're already in trouble? Till that sin has drawn blood in your life, in your spiritual life. Why wait? Why not catch it today? You know what I'm talking about. You know that issue that you've been dealing with that makes your heart throb? You know what's been going on that you've been going, man, I need to stop doing that. And this is not healthy for my life, for my walk with God. But it keeps drawing you in. And it seems like it's harmless and helpful, like a little kitten on your lap. But just at that moment, when it's got you totally drawn in, it turns on you. It causes the worst destruction, more than you could have ever imagined, because we didn't catch it. Close your eyes all over this place for just a moment. If you're here today and you say, Pastor, you don't even know what's been going on in my life, but you're reading my mail right now. You don't know what I've been dealing with, but you're reading my mail right now. And I really need to turn from what I'm doing and catch this thing before it causes destruction, disaster in my life.